Greetings, one and all, from the White Mountains of Arizona. It's a beautiful summer sunset, so we thought it's time to channel. We're going to bring you in on another one of our learnings slash teachings. Everything's a teaching slash learning and a learning slash teaching if you're paying close enough attention. And that's what we're here to do today. We're talking about dreams. I'd like to know more about dreams. I've been having trouble remembering mine lately, but Tara's always vivid with her dreams. So I just want to get questions. What is it? What is actually happening? What are we doing? Does it have any impact on our lives? Like, is any of this real? Is this the dream? Like, there's gonna be so many questions. I brought out a Christy friend. Look at this thing. When I think dreams, sometimes I think a dog-tooth calcite. The lighting's not great here today because it's sunset. But yeah, this is a beauty. I don't know if the camera's picking this up. Let's go over here. Yeah, it's great for dream work, especially this piece here because it's got a double termination, so the energy flows through. Is what you want when you're dreaming, energy to flow through, nothing to get stuck. I don't know who or what Tara's going to channel today. We just have questions, and so whoever is best suited to answer the questions will hopefully come up and will be able to answer what we're looking for. There's Tara preparing herself.
Okay.
All right. You connected to someone here?
Yes.
What are we connected to?
It's a man who calls himself Jeffrey, and he keeps calling me Priscilla. But he says that we studied dreams a long time ago together, and we had learned a lot. So he feels knowledgeable.
So he was human?
Yes, he's got an English accent.
What time period is he from?
Just looking at his clothes, maybe 16 or 1700s.
Okay, and he studied dreams with you in a past life.
I guess, I don't know, he's just calling me Priscilla, I'm not sure.
He could be confused, who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, what did he learn about dreams?
He says that at first he tried to take a earthly approach. He said that he thought that they took place in the mind, and that we were trying to distinguish our daydreaming and imagination from what happened at night. He thought that they were one and the same, but he was in charge of making the brews that would put me to sleep because he said I was such a good dreamer. And he said he would study what was going on with my physical body, and that whatever was happening was so vivid I would move. He says, which meant that there was something going on in the brain, but since there was no external stimuli, that must mean that there was something going on in what he would call the etheric world. And he says, since a lot of the dreams were also sometimes clairvoyant, he said that also was case for making that they weren't just happening in the brain. He says they did many experiments, what was going on in the other room, trying to, I think he's trying to describe astral travel.
Okay, so they were trying to intentionally astral travel.
Yes, they just didn't know that term at the time.
Okay. So they theorized that dreams are more real than we might perceive?
Yes, if you take one and you are quite fully awake, and you are just reacting to the stimuli around you, utilizing your 5 senses. And all of that can be recorded and explained. However, when you are asleep, this means that the heart rate has slowed, respiratory rate is slowed down, and the body goes into a much more relaxed position. At some point, there is rapid movement in the eyes, and it seems to be at this point that there is movement within the body. It's reacting to an internal stimuli because there can be no explanation for any external stimuli, especially when I'm watching over you. I'm not touching you. I have not changed the candle lighting. There's no explanation why the knee must jerk or the head turn, or one might mumble in their sleep, speaking to someone that is not in the room besides myself.
So their consciousness is elsewhere.
Yes. I then ask her to write down, as well as speaking to me orally, what occurred in her sleep. And at first, we tried to decode it in a psychological fashion, as I do have a background in education. And some of it could be explained away in a purely third dimensional psychological sense, yes, but that does not explain how something that was mentioned occurred the next day or was occurring in the room if she was not in that room adjacent to us. She could tell us what our aide was doing in that room or what was happening in the horse stables. How could she know if she was in the bedroom with me? This caused me to believe that the soul, which I do believe exists, and now I fully know as I am a soul, that this soul didn't fully exit the body, because I do believe without a soul in the body, the vessel cannot run, as is explained by death. So a piece of her must mean that they exist within the body, but another piece exists outside of the body and is gathering information, not only in this physical world, as would a ghost of some sort, but also gathering information from a world that we cannot see. And so thus this explains the dream world. For many of the beings don't exist on this plane that we live on here. So the beings that she was describing must then exist on another plane. You have segmented these planes now in your time, but they were not segmented in my time. I just saw them as one other plane. I saw Earth as one whole plane, and the dream world is one other plane. Although mixed in, I do believe that there was a bit of psychology as well, as the human mind never quite fully shuts off. So I do believe it was trying to explain what was happening as part of the soul was exiting the body. And in that explanation, gave way to a very jumbled and unusual sounding experience in the dream world, such as monkeys driving carriages. It's not possible. So therefore, she must have been in a plane where something was perhaps mobile, and the only way her brain could understand it was our modern day carriage. And the monkey, perhaps in the carriage, not again being able to fully explain in the brain that the vessel was encapsulating, was some sort of entity or animal, and so thus she says monkey, and the brain says, you dreamt of monkeys driving a carriage. And so I do believe this is what's happening in the dream world. A piece of you is traveling, gathering information, while the brain is trying to wrap its head around, so to speak, of what is happening, and then trying to relay it to you, the human. And when it comes out on paper or is said verbally, it seems like complete nonsense. But it isn't, if you know how to decode what the soul is saying.
All right, that's a lot of information. So you're saying you didn't have a name for it, but is it correct that we would call it the fourth dimension or the fourth realm or the lower astral realm?
I do believe so, yes, because oftentimes her movements indicated that she was in distress. And so, if a piece of her has left into this astral world or even a lower astral world, perhaps that's the area of where we would talk about demons or the devil himself. If they don't quite reside here on earth, then perhaps they reside in a dimension that we cannot see. And so she has, or every soul is privy to those dimensions once the human is at rest. So all dimensions, not just a high dimension or a low dimension, but perhaps all the dimensions at once.
Okay. So you theorize that a dream as we know it is the soul speaking to the human in a way that the human might necessarily not understand through its ego.
Correct.
So is the dream actually occurring in 4D or is it just an impression?
From now, I'm gathering from my experience from this side, as now I know what realm I'm in. I'm in the fourth dimension in order to speak to you now, but I don't have to reside in the fourth dimension. So while she is off gallivanting in the dream world, I do feel that there is much more that is gathered than it is remembered by the human mind and can be comprehended by the human mind. And perhaps now that I know, time is much different outside of this world, whereas I did not know that in my time. So perhaps she was spending 5 years elsewhere gathering information. She wakes up, she can only remember the tail end of those 5 years. Or her brain trying to quantify 5 years into a sentence of what did you dream about, it would come out rather jumbled and silly and hard to understand unless you were able to go back into that dream world, sans actually sleeping, but more of a quasi sleep, which you would say is meditation.
So your goal was to be able to journey into the dream world and bring back information untainted by the REM sleep phase.
Correct. I do believe that much information, as I said, is lost in human translation, and perhaps for a good reason, much of it isn't meant to be remembered, as the human mind does have a capacity.
So I assume then that dreams are co-creations with other entities in the fourth realm. Is that a good assumption?
Yes, what we gathered, although quite unusual from other theorists at the time, that the spirit never goes to sleep. Your soul never needs rest. It's always functioning, it's always at attention, and it's only the human that needs sleep. So if a portion of the soul can leave while the human is at rest, this must mean that the portion of the soul can also leave while the human is awake
Oh.
and it does not necessarily need rest. And this was interesting as I was trying to understand daydreams. And does one leave itself while still being fully awake to daydream, to gather ideas? Where do these ideas come from? They must come from the same realm as the dream realm. Being on this side, I was correct.
Right, it's just your higher self speaking to you in different ways.
Yes,
So if our dreams are co-creations with other entities, oftentimes we co-create with a negative polarity entity.
yes,
So we've attracted that, and that's our is not us being attacked, rather it's us attracting that energy?
I do believe so. It would be the same reason why our son was a handful, and he often was attracted to other young boys who loved to get into trouble. It's just who he was attracted to. I'm not saying those young boys were bad boys, but it's the same type of attraction. You are just attracted to what you want. Now, we might ask, why was our son attracted to those types of boys? And perhaps I was too strict.
Why is it often difficult for us to remember our dreams?
This portion, I do believe there are things that we ought not to remember, as it does us no justice in our waking life. If the ego, the human portion of you, can't do anything about the information that it received, why give it that information at all? But if everything is stored in an infinite source, which is your soul, and it can take an infinite amount of information and it can store and remember an infinite amount of information, then perhaps we need only to tap into that soul and it need not be remembered in the human mind.
Why do some people remember great detail about their dreams?
We were trying to explain this as well, as I said that every time I closed my eyes, I died for 8 hours and then I woke up. I remember nothing of the world, but my wife was quite imaginative, hence the children being the handful that they were, quite imaginative. But I believe it's those who are, I would say, much like our cats, half in, half out. They're always kind of traveling around. Not everybody's traveling at every time throughout the day, but their mind is always elsewhere. Hence, their soul is always elsewhere, not present, as you would say. So I believe that the ones that are the least grounded, maybe, and least present, knocking over vases and such, not noticing what's in your way, are the most likely to have the vivid dreams, as they're always half in, half out. Their brain is privy to this realm more often, so it's always open to remembering.
So dreams and imagination are intricately connected.
I do believe so.
Are both the higher self coming through the 3D human?
The higher self does come through the 3D human, yes, along with its ego.
But through the imagination and through the dreams?
Yes. It is a balance, though. Oftentimes, sometimes our imagination is our ego, and it comes across as creativity bestowed upon us by the Almighty.
Can controlling our dreams affect our 3D reality?
This I believe as well, and this gets into an even more fascinating area of study that we are in, and this was in the dream state, or a deeply quasi-sleep state, as I would say. Again, the term is meditation. Somehow the person themselves, being stationary, able to exit enough of their energy to exert energy on the surroundings that their 3D form is in. Perhaps this might explain poltergeists, where a spirit, so to speak, would knock over things or open a door or perhaps open a window or be seen within a window. Maybe these aren't poltergeists at all, but merely persons who are awake, who are unaware that they are astral traveling.
Wow. So you theorize, or you telling us that some ghosts are actually humans who are dreaming?
Yes. And I continue my research on this side. it just fascinates me. I don't need to continue my research. I'm been gone for a long time, but it's something that I feel that the research is me, and I'm happy to share it. But I do believe that spirit activity is 50-50. Half of it perhaps could very well be a whole energy without a body, the other 50 being half an energy because it still has a body.
So at night, sometimes Tara and I will witness a star suddenly move around and fly around in the sky and do wiggles and squiggles, and then it will come to a stop and be a star again. We think that this is someone who is astral projecting their consciousness into some sort of device. Is that an accurate guess?
I would say that that would have a strong evidence, especially with the evidence that I have collected, that this could be possible. It also could be, as I have found, that there's consciousness in much things, but in your time, you already know this. This wasn't known in my time. Quite groundbreaking, actually. And if we have consciousness, then these orbs in the sky must also have consciousness. If they have consciousness, why wouldn't they be allowed to move within their space? Why stay stationary unless that's what they chose to do? But also, if we can extend our consciousness or our spirit outside of one's waking body or even sleeping body, but still be a human here on Earth, why couldn't we project ourselves into those things, perhaps a tree or even our cat or up into a star and affect it somehow? We already know that energies outside of this realm can affect this realm physically. So anything is possible.
Were you persecuted in your time for your interests?
I had a very select group of friends.
Hush, hush.
I was a professor and a scientist, and being not the top of my field, but respected, I had to maintain a sense of dumbness, you might say, um, a misunderstanding of science, while at the same time contradicting that science in my own private study.
How much of your ego were you able to remove?
I have just enough ego to say that there was ego in there.
Okay, well, it's been fascinating talking to you. I could talk to you for hours, and I hope we can encounter you again on our travels. But do you have any last message for the people before we head out?
That I find that the people that I worked with, other scientists, brilliant men in their field, people who've dedicated their entire lives to the research of something or truly trying to understand something, whether it be the stars or the soil in the ground, that when you decide that you are already a master of that science, you can never learn more. Always, always have an open mind. This is the true science that I tried to work with. Science means I know nothing, and I'm just taking in information, trying to make judgments or hypotheses, but leaving it open ended. Even if they say that the human can only live a certain number of years, and we have evidence for that, that's fantastic. But that doesn't mean that that's always true. Perhaps one day you'll find the human that had lived 300 years still amongst you. That is true science, and we take that into consideration.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, woo.
That guy was cool. He reminded me of Nikola Tesla a little bit. By the way,
Wow.
check out that Nikola Tesla channeling if you haven't
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, it's in the channel.
It's somewhere.
So I'm just
Give
getting
Tara a moment.
yeah,
Let's
I'm
look
getting
at
my
this.
scruples back together.
We're like heading towards the golden hour here, huh?
Oh, wow. It's beautiful right now. Look how golden everything is.
I could ask that guy so many questions. I love the way he responded with science and logic mixed with higher understanding. It helps us to understand it.
Yeah,
I can't
he's
wait to watch that one back.
like I felt so comfortable hanging out with him. I mean, if I did have a past life with him, I was very comfortable with him. So I was like, come on in.
Yeah, Priscilla. We're gonna have a talk, Priscilla, about what's going on here.
Yeah, it was interesting. He had like this blonde ponytail thing and like these huge like boots, and I don't know, it's interesting. But he just kind of like popped up. He's like, I'm here for dreams. I was like, who are you? Like this human is supposed to be the answer to our dreams.
Well, I mean, if you studied it and now he's studying it in the fourth realm and higher,
Yeah, so I
he's
was
the
like,
expert.
okay,
A little
I'll
better,
teach my ego to judge things.
a little better light here. Yeah, I was just showing them the dogtooth
Ooh,
calcite from Morocco.
that thing's amazing, you guys. I love dogtooth calcite.
Yeah, I find it's good for dream work.
Yeah.
All right, well, anything you want to say to the people before we
Um,
head out of here? Show
yeah,
them the last
just
of the
let
sunset.
us know if you have any questions for future channelings, and you know, whatever entity is best suited for answering it will pop in. Or maybe you have certain energies that you want us to see us channel. Just let us know. But hey, check out my website, kittensweightsandtarot.com, because I have one-on-one live channelings on that website, which means exactly what we're doing here, except you get to be in James's position and I channel whatever entity you
Yeah,
ask for.
you tell her what to connect to. She'll try to connect to it, and then you ask the questions directly. You could ask anybody, your grandparents, your
angels, like whatevs.
your guides.
No demons though. I
No
don't do
demons.
that.
If you want to know what happened to the dinosaurs, you could do that.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. All right, you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Ciao.